What happens when a global superstar sits down for what should be a routine interview and finds herself under attack from a host who seems determined to humiliate her on live television? In just 27 seconds of one explosive comment, everything exploded into the most shocking moment in daytime TV history. Miley Cyrus walked onto the View set that morning expecting a friendly conversation. She had been on the show before. The audience cheered as she took her seat at the table, so she smiled and waved. Everything seemed normal at first. The cameras were rolling. The stage lights were bright. Miley settled into her chair between Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar. Across from her sat Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin. Whoopi started things off with a warm welcome. "We are so excited to have you here today. You look amazing." Miley thanked her, and the conversation began smoothly. They talked about her latest music. They discussed her upcoming tour. The audience was engaged and laughing. For the first 10 minutes, everything was going perfectly fine. Miley was relaxed and open, sharing stories about her creative process and her journey as an artist. Then, Sunny Hostin decided to steer the conversation in a different direction. Her tone changed. Her body language shifted. She leaned forward with a look that made everyone at the table tense up. "So Miley, I want to talk about your past," Sunny said. "You have been quite controversial over the years, wouldn't you say?" Miley kept her composure. "I think I have been authentic," she replied calmly. "I have always stayed true to myself and my art." Sunny was not satisfied with that answer. Her voice got sharper. "But don't you think some of your behavior has been inappropriate, especially considering you started as a role model for children?" The other hosts glanced at each other. You could feel the tension building. Whoopi tried to jump in. "Well, artists evolve and grow," she said, attempting to redirect. But Sunny talked right over her. "No, I really want Miley to answer this. You made a lot of money off young fans who looked up to Hannah Montana. Then, you completely changed and did things that were frankly shocking. Don't you feel any responsibility for that?" Miley took a deep breath. She remained polite but firm. "I was a teenager who grew up in public. I made choices about my own body and my own expression. That is my right as an adult and as an artist." Sunny shook her head dismissively. "That sounds like an excuse to me. You knew what you were doing. You were being provocative for attention." Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. "I think what Miley is saying is that growth is natural, and we all have the right to evolve." Sunny shot Sarah a look that could freeze water. "I am not finished," she snapped. Then she turned back to Miley. "You have set a terrible example. Young girls watching you thought they had to be wild and outrageous to be noticed." Miley's jaw tightened. She was still trying to be respectful. "I have never told anyone they have to be like me. I have always encouraged people to be themselves, whatever that looks like for them." "That's not true," Sunny fired back. "Your actions speak louder than your words. You were twerking on stage. You were nearly naked in music videos. You were doing all kinds of things that were completely inappropriate." Joy Behar jumped in now, her voice rising. "Sunny, come on. This is getting a bit harsh. Miley was expressing herself artistically." Sunny whipped around to face Joy. "Are you seriously defending this? We are supposed to be journalists here. We are supposed to ask tough questions." Alyssa spoke up. "There is a difference between tough questions and just being mean, Sunny." The audience was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Miley sat there, trying to process what was happening. This was supposed to be a fun interview about her music. Instead, she was being attacked from every angle by one host who seemed to have a personal vendetta. Sunny ignored Alyssa and kept going. "Miley, let me ask you something else. Do you ever feel ashamed when you look back at some of the things you did?" "No," Miley said firmly. "I do not feel ashamed. I feel proud that I had the courage to be myself." "That is exactly the problem," Sunny said, her voice dripping with judgment. "You should feel some shame. What you did was disgraceful. Whoopi put her hand up. Okay, Sunny, that's enough. This is crossing a line. Sunny turned on Whoopi. Why are you protecting her? We have had plenty of controversial guests on this show, and we have held them accountable. This is different, and you know it, Whoopi said. You are not holding anyone accountable. You are just being cruel. The argument was now happening between the hosts themselves. Miley sat there watching as the panel fell apart around her. She looked uncomfortable, but she was not going to back down. Sunny took a breath and focused back on Miley. Let me put it this way. If you had a daughter, would you want her to behave the way you did? That question landed like a bomb. The audience gasped. The other hosts looked shocked. Miley's face went red. She had been patient up until this point. She had tried to answer respectfully. But this was too much. How dare you, Miley said quietly, but with steel in her voice. How dare you sit there and judge me like you are some kind of moral authority? You do not know me. You do not know my life. You do not get to tell me how I should feel about my own choices. Sunny smirked. I touched a nerve, did I? You are not touching a nerve, Miley said, her voice getting louder. You are being incredibly disrespectful. I came here to talk about my music and my art. I did not come here to be lectured by someone who clearly has a problem with me. Sarah tried to calm things down. Maybe we should take a breath and move on to another topic. But Sunny was not done. I am just saying what everyone is thinking. You want to be seen as the serious artist now, but you built your career on shock value. That is the truth. Miley stood up. The whole studio went quiet. You know what the truth is, Sunny? The truth is that you are threatened by women who are confident and free. You are sitting here trying to tear me down because you cannot stand that I refuse to live my life according to what other people think I should do. Sunny laughed mockingly. Oh, please. This is not about confidence. This is about basic decency. Decency? Miley's voice was shaking now, not with fear, but with anger. You want to talk about decency? Where is the decency in ambushing a guest on your show? Where is the decency in asking cruel questions designed to humiliate someone? You are a bully, Sunny. That is what you are. Joy stood up too. Miley is right. This has gone way too far. Alyssa nodded in agreement. This is not journalism. This is just mean. Sunny looked around at her fellow hosts, realizing she was losing them. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. I cannot believe you are all taking her side. She comes on our show, and we are supposed to just softball her? That is not what we do here. We also do not attack our guests for no reason, Whoopi said firmly. You need to apologize. I will not apologize for asking real questions, Sunny said defiantly. Miley grabbed her microphone and placed it on the table. I do not need an apology from her. I just need to leave. I will not sit here and be disrespected like this. The producers were scrambling, and you could see people running around behind the cameras. This was live television, and it was falling apart in real time. The stage manager was trying to figure out what to do. Sunny called after Miley. Running away? That is mature. Miley stopped and turned around. I am not running away. I am choosing not to engage with someone who is acting like this. There is a difference. And you wanted to make me look bad on your show, but all you have done is show everyone who you really are. The audience started clapping. It started slow, but then it grew louder and louder. People were standing up. They were applauding Miley for standing up for herself. Sunny looked stunned. She had not expected this reaction. Whoopi spoke into her microphone. Miley, you do not have to leave. Please stay. We can continue this conversation in a respectful way. But Miley shook her head. I appreciate that, Whoopi. I really do. But I cannot stay here after this. I have too much respect for myself. Joy reached out and touched Miley's arm. We are so sorry this happened. This is not okay. Miley gave Joy a small smile. Thank you. You all have been lovely. Well, most of you. She looked directly at Sunny when she said that last part. Sunny crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. You are being overdramatic. That was the final straw. Miley walked right up to Sunny's side of the table. She did not yell. She did not scream. She spoke clearly and calmly. You know what is ridiculous, Sunny? Thinking you can treat people however you want just because you have a platform. You owe me an apology, but more than that, you owe an apology to every guest who has ever sat in this chair and been treated poorly by you. I hope you take a long look at yourself after this. With that, Miley turned and walked off the stage. The cameras followed her as she made her way through the backstage area. Her team was waiting for her. They hugged her and ushered her out. The view was left in chaos. Back at the table, the remaining hosts sat in stunned silence. Sunny tried to speak, but Whoopi cut her off. We need to go to commercial. Now. Sarah was visibly upset. I cannot believe that just happened. Alyssa shook her head. That was awful. Just awful. Sunny still seemed to think she was in the right. She could not handle tough questions. That is not my fault. Whoopi turned to her slowly. Sunny, those were not tough questions. That was a personal attack. You crossed so many lines I cannot even count them all. Joy was fuming. You made us all look terrible. We are supposed to be a team, and you just threw that out the window because you wanted to go after Miley for some reason. I was doing my job, Sunny insisted. No, Whoopi said firmly. Your job is to have meaningful conversations with our guests. Your job is not to berate them and make them feel small. You forgot that today, and we all paid the price for it. The stage manager was signaling frantically. They had to go to commercial. The show was in freefall. Whoopi took a deep breath and faced the camera. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will address what just happened here. As soon as they cut to commercial, the set erupted. The producers rushed over. The other hosts were talking over each other. Sunny sat there stone-faced, refusing to acknowledge that she had done anything wrong. But everyone else knew. The whole country knew. This was going to be everywhere within minutes. In the commercial break, Joy confronted Sunny directly. What were you thinking? Why would you treat her like that? Sunny's mask finally cracked a little. I just think people like her need to be held accountable. For what? Sarah demanded. For growing up? For making her own choices about her career and her body? That is not accountability. That is just you pushing your own judgments onto someone else. Alyssa was pacing. This is going to be a nightmare for the show. Miley Cyrus just walked off our set on live TV because of how she was treated. Do you understand how bad this looks? Whoopi was talking to the producers, and they were trying to figure out how to handle the rest of the show. Should they address it directly? Should they try to move on? Nothing like this had ever happened before. When they came back from commercial, Whoopi addressed the camera with a serious expression. As you just saw, our guest Miley Cyrus left the show. Tensions got very high during what was supposed to be a regular interview. Things were said that should not have been said. We pride ourselves on having respectful conversations on this show, and today we fell short of that standard. Joy nodded. Miley deserved better than what happened here today. She came on our show in good faith, and she was treated unfairly. Sarah added, We want to apologize to Miley and to everyone watching. That is not the kind of interview we want to conduct. Alyssa spoke up. Disagreements are fine. Tough questions are fine. But what happened crossed a line into personal attacks, and that is never okay. All eyes turned to Sunny. The camera was on her. She had to say something. She cleared her throat. I stand by my questions. I think holding public figures accountable is important. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just defiance. The other hosts looked at each other in disbelief. Whoopi's face said it all. She was done. "We are going to move on now," she said curtly. The rest of the show was awkward and tense. The chemistry between the hosts was completely gone. Sunny barely spoke for the remaining segments. When she did, the others would give short responses and move on quickly. The audience could feel it. The viewers at home could feel it. Something had broken that could not be easily fixed. Social media exploded instantly. Videos of the confrontation were everywhere. People were taking sides. The vast majority were supporting Miley. They praised her for standing up for herself. They called out Sunny for her behavior. Some people defended Sunny, saying she was just doing her job as a journalist, but they were drowned out by the wave of criticism. Celebrities started weighing in. Other musicians expressed their support for Miley. People who had been guests on The View in the past shared their own stories of uncomfortable moments on the show. It became a bigger conversation about how talk shows treat their guests and where the line is between asking tough questions and being disrespectful. Inside the studio, as soon as the show ended, there was a meeting. Producers pulled Sunny aside. The other hosts gathered together separately. Everyone knew this was a turning point. The dynamic of the show had changed in those few minutes of live television. Whoopi made it clear to the producers that something had to be done. "Fam, we cannot have this happen again. Our guests need to feel safe coming on this show. Today was unacceptable." Joy agreed. "I have been doing this for a long time, and I have never seen anything like that. Sunny needs to understand that what she did was wrong." Sarah was still shaken by the whole experience. "I felt so helpless watching it happen. I tried to step in, but she just kept going." Alyssa summed it up perfectly. "We are supposed to challenge our guests and have real conversations. But there is a way to do that with respect and dignity. That is not what happened today." Meanwhile, Miley was in her car heading away from the studio. Her team was on the phone dealing with the fallout. But Miley herself seemed calm. She had said what she needed to say. She had stood up for herself. She was not going to apologize for that. Her manager asked if she wanted to release a statement. Miley thought about it for a moment. "No," she said. "What happened speaks for itself. Everyone saw it. I do not need to explain anything." And she was right. The footage was clear. The exchange was recorded. There was no ambiguity about what had occurred. Sunny had pushed and pushed until Miley had no choice but to walk away. It was